Cashflow Management, Finance section of CFO100. In this section, you learn cash flow management. Cash flow management is a very basic function of financial division, and it is one of the most important things to manage the company. Interestingly, people working in good company are not good at managing cash flow. Good and large companies have the credibility to borrow money at low cost and on-demand basis. That's why cash flow management is not a hot topic for daily operation. That is why many financial persons in excellent companies don't have a clear view of how to manage daily, monthly based cash flow to real operation. You need to learn basic know-how of cash management. Firstly, to understand the proper cash management, you need to understand the nature of your business. If you are operating a bookstore, grocery store, or a manufacturing factory, we call it a trading and manufacturing type of business. On the other hand, there are different types of business. We call it project type of business. For example, the real estate company, power plant, or a water plant are a project type of business. This category of business has the lifespan of the business and tend to have large fixed facilities. In reality, we cannot categorize all business very clearly, so this comparison is just a way to view the focused point of cash flow management. If you are managing the first type of business, the point which you focus on is the movement of working capital and account payable and receivable. On the other hand, if you are managing a project type of business, you need to focus much more on long-term interest and payback, and you need to take care of maintenance costs and dividends. This type of business usually has long-term debt or loans to cover fixed assets, and the maintenance cost is usually an important factor on the company. So, not only focusing on very basic short-term and medium-term basis cash flow management, you need to check the long-term cash flow as well. Necessary material and focus points depend on what kind of business you are handling. If you are handling a trading or manufacturing type of business, what you must do first is establishing a basic cash flow sheet on a short-term and medium-term basis. It means daily, weekly, and monthly calculation. Cash management for this type of business is relatively simple and easy to understand its overview. We should learn it first. In this slide, the table on the left side shows the example of line items of spreadsheet for cash flow. From top to bottom, the list starts from the bank balance of the starting date, and in the middle of the list, there are items of cash payment and receivable. The important point is that we should segregate cash basis revenue and expense from non-cash basis revenue and expense. Even though we recognize the revenue, it does not mean the cash inflow at that timing. If we sell product with the account receivable, the timing is not the same timing of sales realization. So, when you make the cash flow model for daily, weekly, and monthly purpose, you need to segregate cash basis revenue and expense from non-cash basis one. This point is the most important when you are creating the cash flow forecast. When you create the forecast, you need to consider the three important points also. The first one is information from the business division. Although finance and accounting divisions have own data in accounting system, most of all fresh information is coming from the business division. They know the details of the business and of requirement as of now. So direct communication with the business team is important for forecast. The second important point is understanding of loan agreement. Payback borrowing to lenders and paying interest is basic but very important mandatory requirement of cash. All of things are defined by loan agreement. There is possibility that wrong understanding of loan agreement causes sudden and huge payback or limitation of drawdown. It can be a critical scenario to disrupt the business. The third important point is communication with bank. This is related to the second point, but the process to pay back and borrow the money is not so easy. To borrow money from banks and when we pay it back, there might be complicated administrative process. For example, in developed countries, you may send an email or phone call to bank to draw down new facility, but you may need to prepare a paper document having physical signature by many persons in emerging countries which still have paper culture. Those small administrative issues sometimes causes serious and unexpected constraint of cash. CFO should make sure every process is clear for person in charge of the cash management and set up a standard operation procedure of the process. When it comes to that, you look at the project type of business. There are additional focus points to trading and manufacturing type of business. Because the project type of business usually requires a long-term cash flow model that reflects a long-term debt schedule. In this slide, you can see a cash waterfall. This is the basic concept to manage the long-term cash flow model for the project type of business. Let's see how this is working. If the cash inflow from the operation is 100 million, you use the cash for ordinary business operating purpose first. Then, based on the loan agreement, interest payment and payback of loan principal happen. Next, you set some amount of money as reserved for future maintenance or a buffer for cash management. After that, you can decide how much amount you can allocate as dividend to shareholders. This is a basic way to manage the project type of business cash waterfall. This way of thinking and method can be utilized for trading and manufacturing business, but the background of the reason why you are recommended to create cash waterfall is that this type of business usually requires large amount of money for maintenance and loan payback and interest. If you only have short-term cash management methodology, you cannot comply with these large cash out items. CFO need to take care of longer-term cash flow with using this waterfall model to preserve some amount of cash on this project type of business. Additionally, this type of business is required stable dividend performance from shareholders. To allocate cash to dividend as much as possible, Cash Waterfall explains clearly the priority of cash usage. It is beneficial for CFO to convince shareholders of the performance of the project. If you are CFO, you will be asked this question every time in shareholder meeting or board of director meeting. Of course, as a typical point in project type of business, cash management always reflects long-term business plan and its requirement. In this section, you have learned basic methodology of cash management. On the other hand, even though you know the basic concept, you will be faced with the difficulty of implementation the concept to regular work. And also you need to learn how to review the cash waterfall as CFO. Those practical parts will be learned in another lecture.